From the Western Mass News studios in Springfield, this is Western Mass News Getting Answers with Dave Mattson.
Thanks for taking the time to join me for this week's edition of Western Mass News Getting Answers. Each week, I'm joined by political and business leaders and other newsmakers to talk about the issues that affect you. This week, I'm joined by West Springfield Mayor Will Reichelt. Reichelt was reelected to a third term, running unopposed in November. He was first elected in 2015 when he was 29. Now at the age of 35, he's the second longest-serving mayor in the Pioneer Valley. Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno, the longest-serving mayor. Time permitting, we're going to focus on how West Springfield is dealing with the recent surge in the coronavirus, dropping the tax rate for commercial and residential properties, and downtown West Springfield redevelopment. Thanks for taking time to be with us. Congratulations.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Another term just sworn in a little over a week ago. So
yeah.
How's it feel?
Great. This is my 7th year now, which is crazy to think back to 2015 when I was just a lawyer and working for Mayor Sullivan at the time, and he wasn't going to run. You should run. It's crazy to think that that's been 6 years since then. And I love it. It's been a great ride, kind of besides these past 2 COVID years. But a lot of good things going on and a lot of good things planned for the future, too.
Well, let's talk about the current situation of COVID-19 in West Springfield. I mean, it was something that I don't think any of us saw. Have you seen the uptick that like we're seeing in other communities in Western Mass?
Yeah, much like every other community in Western Mass, we're seeing a huge surge, over 500 cases tested positive in the kind of week after Christmas leading into the new year. And I'm hoping that much like other places in the world that have seen the Omicron variant, we're going to see a huge spike and then it will fade back down, which is hopeful that this happens soon. But we are definitely seeing a huge surge across our community and our schools. A lot of staff, a lot of students have tested positive and are out right now, yeah.
I know not too long ago you said you don't have any plans to reinstate that mask mandate. Are you sticking by that right now?
For the time being, yeah. I mean, I would still, I side with my Board of Health in saying we strongly recommend that if you're going out in the public, you do wear a mask. And we're seeing that a lot already. A lot of folks, if you go into Stop and Shop or Costco, they're already wearing a mask. And I think for one, I think getting a vaccine and getting a booster shot are the best steps to move forward. And then encouraging a mask wearing in public. I think mandates have become so divisive and so difficult for us to enforce that it almost makes it worse. Than trying to just strongly suggest that you do the right thing, wear a mask when you're going out, and get vaccinated if you can.
I mean, one of the things we were talking about before airtime was the fact that, as far as schools are concerned, that school sports will go on. I mean, many other places
Absolutely.
have canceled those, but you think that's important, don't you?
Yeah, and it was especially for wrestling, and our hockey team is doing awesome. I would hate to see them lose a chance at the playoffs. Wrestling wasn't even able to happen last year. So to really take that away, I think would be unfortunate for our students. And the good thing is, the coaches keep a good eye on them. They're good role models. They work well in that structure, and they're with us, and we're able to control more of what's happening and kind of teach them the right steps to be taken through COVID now that it's been going on for more than almost 2 years now. And if they're not with us, we don't really know what's happening. We can't guarantee that they're any safer away from us than they are with us. And I think sports provides them a good structure, and our teams are doing very well. And I think the students definitely look forward to it.
And for their mental health, I think all of our mental health.
Yes.
It's really a good thing to do.
The more things that we can keep going and keep this team as regular as possible, I think is the greatest benefit right now, because we all remember 2020, we all remember the isolation, and the last thing we want to do is go back to that. That's why we're doing everything we can to make sure that schools stay open, that businesses stay open, and try to taking the mitigation necessary that we need to, but without kind of infringing on and bringing back that remembrance of 2020.
School attendance was down about 8% at the beginning of this week when students returned from the holiday break. What do those numbers look like now?
They're still similar because of all those tests that are popping positive, all the students that are out. Hopefully we look forward to February break in the next probably 4 or 5 weeks that we can get a better number before we get to that, or hopefully be kind of done on the other side of this slope as we go there. But we're definitely still seeing the attendance issue, and not because people don't want to come, it's just because they're testing positive and have to quarantine.
Sure. Big E Fairgrounds played a vital role as a COVID testing site. And I know there's been a lot of talk that we don't have enough testing sites in Western Mass now. Are there any talks, any consideration of reopening that site?
We are working on it. Our state legislative delegation is working very hard to try to make something happen. As you mentioned, they did it back in April of 2020. They hosted a vaccine clinic in 2021. 1.4 million people were at the fair this past year. They know how to handle traffic. Our police know how to handle traffic. So I do think it would be a great spot to do it. And looking now, when you have try to get a PCR test, you have 10 days of waiting. At that point, with an isolation only of 5 days now, there's almost no point in getting tested. But that's frustrating for people that want to get tested. So I do think another test site at the Big E would be a huge help. And they've played a big role in this pandemic throughout the entire 2 years. I do think it'd be good to have one there.
You know, one of the things we were talking about is the fact that, you know, when all this hit 2 years ago, that there was really no game plan for this. And, you know, and as we look at things right now, you're better prepared for it. It's like, all right, not everything's a surprise for you, but there's still no, is there any way you could proceed forward, you know, with an overall game plan for the city when you've got this factoring in again?
It's hard. Yeah. And you want to kind of treat it as like COVID's over, we can put this behind us. We're over 60% vaccinated now, we're moving in the right direction. But then you see a surge like this happen. So we have the Big E, 1.4 million people, very successful, about 100 cases across the state linked back to the fair, which is huge. But then 2-3 months later, we're now at this massive surge, the worst we've ever seen. It really is hard to try to have that positive outlook and make plans to move forward. But at the same time, if we don't, we're never going to move forward. So we are working now. You know, it is a good start to a new 4-year term. We have a new kind of 8-point plan, 8 pillars in place for what we call in the next 8 decades for West Springfield. And we are pushing ahead as if COVID is ending, we can move forward with all these other plans, because we've had a hiatus of 2 years of a lot of the planning and a lot of the projects we wanted to do. So we are pushing forward with the plans that we've had that have been on the back burner. And we've kind of used the past 2 years to kind of get us ready for what's next. So we are moving ahead as if COVID's over, and we're hoping that maybe if we wish it'll happen.
Now you're talking about 60% vaccination rate in West Springfield.
Yes.
Obviously, you'd like those numbers to be better.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's the difficulty that you see in people, the reluctance to getting vaccinated?
I think there definitely is vaccine hesitancy, and in some senses we have the largest refugee population in the state per capita in West Springfield, and I think getting communication out to them is difficult, and we have 52 odd different languages. And getting to them and explaining the need of the vaccine. Our health department's been doing a lot of outreach in that area, but there definitely is that vaccine hesitancy there. And then you have the people that aren't going to get it no matter what you say too. So we're balancing on that, but we are trying, especially in our education student age K through 12 group, trying to get them more educated into getting the vaccine and getting parents vaccinated. Our schools are hovering, most of them are around the 60 to 70% vaccinated rate, which is good. Doing a little better than the community as a whole, but we definitely have more work to do. And a lot of it is that outreach, which we're trying to spend a lot more time on. Although at the same time, as we're trying to do a lot of outreach, we see cases spiking and more of our times being pulled for case management and close contacts. So it's a difficult, with the staff we have, it's a difficult balance.
Sure. I suppose the other part of this too is in keeping the importance of keeping the schools open, especially with these refugee families, working through the children to convey to the parents that, you know, this is a good thing to do. It's part of the whole process.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
So as far as the city itself financially, after 2 years of COVID now, in the spring of 2020, we've been dealing with all this. Financially, how's the city doing?
Very good. You know, much better than we expected back in, I would say, budget season of 2020. We had dire concerns of what we were going to do and how we were going to move forward, and we cut a lot out of the budget back then. But over the past 2 years now, we've seen it hasn't been that, especially now that businesses reopened and people are starting to travel again, to use the hotels, motels, go out to eat. That was our biggest negative, was the possibility of losing meals tax and hotel motel tax.
Sure.
But we've definitely not seen as negative as effect as we thought, and it's definitely recovering as we move forward. So if things keep going the way they are, I don't see a big negative on the community overall. Especially seeing a successful Big E happen was huge as a test case to how we can move forward. So no real financial negative outlook for the town as a whole.
Yeah.
I can't speak to specific business because, you know, as these spikes and surges happen, they will be negatively affected because people don't want to go out or won't go out as much.
But you're confident that the West Springfield will be able to survive this latest surge?
Absolutely.
Economically. Absolutely. And in other ways too.
Yes, definitely.
All right. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Mayor Reichelt and I will talk about West Springfield's, how it was able to lower the tax rate for residential and commercial properties. Welcome back to Western Mass News Getting Answers. My guest this week is West Springfield Mayor Will Reichel. Mayor Reichel, West Springfield recently lowered the tax rate for commercial and residential properties. I'm sure many leaders in other communities are going, how are you able to do that?
A lot of it was done, this is now 7 years we haven't raised taxes. 6 years of my administration, the last year Mayor Sullivan's administration. So a lot of it has been based off of that. We go through the budget with a fine-tooth comb as we craft it. I asked all department heads to give me 5% cuts, which is somewhat frustrating for them a lot of times. We say, we're doing so well economically, why are we cutting? And it really is to get to this point over time, to get our average residential tax bills lower than both Agwell and Westfield for us is huge. It is something that I've heard for years before I was even involved in politics, that, why do we pay so much to live here? And there is a caveat, I will say, valuations did go up. So some people did see an increase to their tax bill while others saw a decrease. But overall, we look at the average tax bill is lower than some surrounding communities, which is a big deal, and it takes a lot of work in the back end, whether it be not rehiring staff when they retire or cutting into different budgets here or there to make sure that you're balancing providing a good service, making sure you're giving people what they want and need to be in West Springfield and make sure they're getting something for their tax dollars, while also not going back to them every year and saying, we need more, we need more, we need more. So it's been a lot of years coming, but I am very proud of the work we've done.
I know that's one of the things you've referred to, is the fact that in West Springfield, in many places haven't had the luxury of being able to do this, is this long-term plan. You aren't just thinking the next year or the next 2 years, you're thinking well beyond that.
Yeah, and even and I would say the biggest thing I heard when we switched the mayoral term in 2016 from 2 years to 4 years, from department heads, they were happy because before me, we had 2 one-term mayors that were each there for 2 years, and I was now the third, arguably one-term mayor, and he said, turning it from 2 to 4, now we know you're going to be here for at least 4 years, we can have a real conversation about planning and put 5-year plans into effect. And now, as I plan and look ahead, I'm looking 10, 15 years out what I want to be doing and where I want to move the city. And I think we're seeing it with this ability to lower our tax bills, average tax bills, that long-term planning in effect, and making it very beneficial for the community and the residents.
Granted, I mean, you didn't have any opponent this last time around, but
which I'm very happy with.
That's very happy. But I mean, when you talk about a 4-year term, that is important, and you see more and more communities leaning towards that, because it's not like you're running every 2 years.
Yeah.
You've got a space in between where you really have the opportunity to lead.
And a lot of the things that we do that impacted this are somewhat unpopular. So in the beginning of my last 4-year term, yes, we did raise the water and sewer rates because they hadn't been raised in over a decade. And there was a lot of infrastructure work that had to be done. And it's either done via the usage rates or it's done via property taxes. And to be able to do that early, I mean, a lot of ways it probably wasn't done because people are going to remember after 2 years. I mean, sure. They still remember now and remind me that their water bills are high. But you can see at least the positive impact of that over 4 years versus over 2. You got to do it right away and then hope that you can make something positive happen and show, well, this is why I did that, because you're running the next year. It's very difficult to do that.
Yeah. Now one of your priorities, too, is downtown revitalization. One of the examples is the recent opening of the town commons at 95 Elm Street. You have Tandem Bakery down there now,
Yep.
which is nice. What specific areas of downtown are you looking at? What more would you like to see?
When I talk about downtown, it's Park Street to Serrato's, so Mosier at the other end, Worthing, Garden Street. There's that 3-block section that has the Elm Street Common, that has, when I was growing up, that United Bank building 95 Elm had Pipe and Book there, there's breakfast spots. It was kind of more cut up, there was more walkability down there. There still was walkability, but there were more retail stores down there. That's really what we're looking to bring back. Bring a couple more restaurants, another lounge, to be able to have people be down there, walk around. We have redone the parking lot at Town Hall. There's about 300 spaces. So with the Majestic, that brings people from, not just West Springfield, is what we're looking to do too, bring people from the region into downtown West Springfield and give our businesses that ability to make more money from out of the town. And have people able to go down and just walk around, whether they pop in and get a gelato or a pastry, whatever it is, have that ability to come here and stay right in West Springfield.
There's a lot to be said about that, the fact things that don't necessarily shut down at 5 o'clock every day.
Absolutely. And for us, and Town Hall closes at 5, all that parking is available for everyone to come down. And I will say, during the day, Tandem Bagel certainly benefits from the Town Hall being right next to it. I don't think I've ever gone in there and not seen an employee in there, which is fantastic. And it's nice to see that right in the downtown, to have a spot, you can get a coffee and talk. For the 6 years that I've been mayor, we've never had that in our downtown. You have to drive somewhere to get coffee, which is difficult.
Well, the other part of that, too, is a business like Tandem that's expanding all over the valley, looks at West Springfield and says, listen, this is a place where we can grow and the business will be good.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's good for other businesses to see too.
It's good to show that there is success here. I think it was a kind of leap of faith on their part too, to come to a downtown that really had nothing. I mean, Beanopolis there, the Majestic's there, Celery Stock is there. But besides that, there's not a lot of other food places that you might say, are people going to stop? Are people going to come? Or are they just going to drive through? Because in a lot of ways, we're kind of a cut-through community city because we're the crossroads. Everyone drives through to go to the places they have to work. But to see Tandem be so successful, I think, is a good thing for other businesses to want to relocate here.
It's a little bit different as opposed to a downtown Northampton or a downtown Westfield, because you've got Elm Street in one spot, you've got Main Street, so they're kind of separated, but they both could be very active places.
Absolutely, and they really are. And when I would talk, people will say, "Oh, you more like Northampton." We're not going to be more like Northampton. It's very condensed. That section of Elm Street's really 2-3 blocks. And then Main and Union have their own other downtown feel. If you go down there's a ton of authentic restaurants and grocery stores. So we are split up in that sense, but I do think we can still benefit from having a location to go to and kind of walk around.
Sure. Now, you've also talked about investing in the city's infrastructure and in schools too. You got a brand new high school and you look at the other schools. Where are you there?
So we have, and this is also the benefits our downtown, Coburn Elementary, which is right behind CVS. Right in our downtown, will open in September. They'll open to students in September, which is a 700-person school. It's a very diverse school to begin with. That's where the majority of our different languages are in Coburn. That's running at about $50-ish million. We actually benefited with COVID happening. We bid everything at the right time, so we're getting a good price for that school. And from there, we have to go look at our other schools that are 50-plus years old and make some additions onto them, because we want to make sure these schools last us a very long time. And with the influx of the ARPA money and ESSER money and the infrastructure money that's happening, we want to make some serious investments in our buildings. We've done a lot of underground work. No one can really see it, but the pipes are good, they're fixed, and there's more work to do. But investing in those school buildings and also building a new police station and a DPW yard are huge for us over the next 5 to 10 years.
All things that every city and town are facing this day and age.
Yes, and all expensive.
Nothing is cheap for sure. Now, I know the school committee recently created the position of behavioral analyst. As mayor, what are your hopes that person can accomplish in city schools? It seems like, especially with COVID and everything else, it's important these days.
And it's something social emotional learning is something we've been talking about pre-COVID a lot, of the ability to get in and work with students that are, whether they're troubled or having issues, and get them at a different level than just the regular expectation of education. But after seeing what's happened through COVID, and one, being isolated for almost a year and not being able to be in school, and now focusing hard to keep schools open and be there, we're seeing behavioral issues dramatically increase. So the need is even more to get in, intervene, and work with kids to make sure that they're able to focus in the classroom and get the education they need and want, but also provide those additional services. So that's one piece of what they're going to do, and we look even beyond that to expand as we move forward, because we're seeing the benefit of having that staff and those staffers in our buildings. And it was something we've talked about for a while, but now being forced to kind of have to do it, we're seeing the benefit and able to move forward with it.
Timing is good, though, for sure.
Time is very good. Time is very good.
All right, time for another break. When we come back, Mayor Reichelt and I talk about West Springfield's quest for racial equity and expanding municipal services. Welcome back to Western Mass News Getting Answers. I'm pleased to be joined this week by West Springfield Mayor Will Reichelt. A year ago, you declared racism an emergency and public health crisis, and you ordered all city departments to examine their operations with an eye towards racial equity. Has the city made progress in that area, you think?
We have, and we have actually hired a diversity and inclusion coordinator, and they are working to really work with those departments to focus on what they should. I mean, obviously hiring is one of our biggest issues. We need to certainly do better. As I say, we're one of the most diverse communities when it comes to refugees. Town Hall does not yet reflect that. The schools certainly do more so than the Town Hall does, but we have a long way to go with a lot of those different things. And really, even when it comes to a year ago saying we've declared it a public health crisis, getting the town really involved to buy into that, we still have work to do with that. So we're certainly doing better. We're focusing on, at least on our boards and committees, getting those to be more diverse. And when I say more diverse, both in race and in male, female, a lot of it's still white male. So we have a lot more to do with that. It's definitely improving. I will say it's better to have someone focused on that as their full-time job in Town Hall will definitely help out.
And overall, too, it seems like police community relations in West Springfield, as opposed to some other communities, are very good.
Very good. Our police do a great job in West Springfield. We have an excellent police chief in Paul Connor. who is a townie and has been here to really guide us through. And we have a lot of town residents, a lot of our police officers are town residents, so they come from West Springfield and they can relate back to the community. So it is definitely good. And our recruiting for police officers has been good too. So in that scenario, we are in a good space.
And that's, I mean, given the fact that the West Springfield is so diverse, and these cops are out there each and every day, that can't be easy for them. But I mean, that speaks a lot to the overall attitude about police in West Springfield too, as opposed to other places.
Absolutely.
I know one of your goals has also been to expand city services, municipal services like municipal fiber, like they've done in Westfield. Where does that stand, and are you looking at other services to expand?
So we are with Whip City Fiber. Former Mayor Brian Sullivan and I are very good friends. I'm happy to work with him, and we plan to hopefully begin rolling it out this year with a goal towards having it fully rolled out throughout the city in the next 5. I know we kind of did a lot of work towards the end of the year. It was on the news a lot, but then now it's kind of in the background. And it's only for the residents that are watching and curious, it's only in the background in the sense of there's a lot of paperwork that needs to get done as we move forward and work with Eversource and Verizon, who own most of the poles in town. So unlike Westfield, who they own most of their own poles, we don't own any of our own poles because we don't have our own municipal light and power. So we are moving ahead with that, getting a lot of that groundwork done so we can start seeing wires get run throughout the city, and it will be a rolling project too. So as we finish a neighborhood, folks in that neighborhood will be able to hook up and connect to that service. So we do look forward to it. I'm not in the first phase, unfortunately, but many of our councilors are, and a lot of our big neighborhoods will be included in that, and we hope to get that done, at least the first phase of it done this year as we move forward and build out as much of the city as possible over the next 5.
And I suppose for taxpayers too, and homeowners and everything else, you look at that and go, look, you may be paying a little bit more for taxes as far as your property values are concerned, but we're going to try to save you some money as far as your internet's concerned.
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to always balance. Taxes are tax. No one likes taxes. No one likes property taxes. You don't like paying for something that you perceive that you're not getting anything for, especially if you're younger like me and you don't have kids in the schools. It's like, well, I don't have kids. It's frustrating, but at the same time, when you look at the services we're able to provide, and we're always trying to make sure that we, one, provide as many services as we can for no extra cost to residents, and also communicate well with and be available for communication with folks. Have a problem, we can try to solve it as fast as we can. So that's something that we're always trying to streamline within Town Hall is the communication, the customer service, making sure that we're open and available for everyone and get as many problems solved as we can.
So where would you like to see West Springfield at the end of your current 4-year term? So it's hard to imagine. I mean, we're looking at 2026.
I know. It is crazy, but it's also at the same time to look back and say, wow, 2015 was when I ran, and now I'm looking at running again in 2025. It will have been 10 years in between. I was in my 20s, and now I'll be at the end of my 30s, all given to the city. But I love it. I truly do love the job. I have a great staff, and building out a lot of the physical infrastructure now. I would love to be able to cut a ribbon on a police station and DPW yard before I run again in 2025. I would love to add on, and I know all of it won't happen. A lot of it is some of the background stuff. So the planning and getting some of the downtown infrastructure fixed and worked, we have plans to redo the whole center of town. So at least to get a lot of those things move forward, at least if not shovel ready, very close to that. But I would love to see really a different face in the downtown, especially when I run again in 2025. And hopefully we can move in a lot different when this past 2 years is over, when COVID's behind us, we'll be able to move a lot faster with some of these plans and get rolling. But the good thing is there's a lot of money that's flowed down from us from the federal government, really, in a lot of ways, once in a generation money.
Sure.
So I think we'll be able to make a lot of good projects happen over the next 5 years.
All right. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with me today.
My pleasure.
It's
Thank
been
you.
Good. Let's do this again.
Absolutely.
West Springfield Mayor Will Reichelt. I'm Dave Batson. Stay safe, stay well. Thanks for watching, and if you can, join us next week for Western Mass News, Getting Answers.